All right, good morning, guys. We are here to talk about the market, Coinbase, Doge, NFTs, and so on. So let's start with the market update. As you can see on the last week's show, it was on the 10th. We were here and we said, we expect it to go to 73 in 4 weeks. It's been a week. It's gone up a little and come back down a little. Uh, any um, any inputs from you, Swapman?
Still very bullish. I mean, it's normal that it pulled a little bit back. I was thinking that it would follow through a bit higher. I thought it was going for like 68 or something, and then would pull back. But I mean, so far the trend is still obviously very firmly intact, and um, I've even added here at a little above 60. So I'm staying long and strong.
All right, so you have added somewhere around here, like around 60. That's a good price. Even if you got it here or here, I think both of them are really good entries. And yeah, we expect the uptrend to continue for Bitcoin and therefore the general markets, since Bitcoin is the bellwether, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely right that Bitcoin is the bellwether, and the thing is that there's obviously been a lot more action outside of Bitcoin this past week on various altcoins, particularly Doge. But yeah, yeah. So when you look at the Doge chart, even if you okay, so it's interesting to look at it in dollar terms, which you're charting it at. But even if you look year to date versus Bitcoin, it's like in satoshis, it's just it's insane how much Doge has risen.
Right. I mean, you can see it here from you know this was what 6 cents, something like this, and now it peaked at 46 cents. That is almost 8 times, and it's pulled back down a little bit here. But so, what do you think of this kind of move? Is it like a blow off, and it's like it's done, or it's just the beginning of a serious uptrend that can go into like $1, $2, $10?
I wouldn't call it a blow off so quickly. I would change from one day on moves like this. I would change it from like one day to maybe like 4 hour to get an idea of a bit more that. Yeah, see how it's like it's at that last leg up. We're basically we pulled back to the point where it broke out before, right? So arguably it's not a bad spot to add for short term momentum play. I mean, obviously, it can still drop by half or something, where the original breakout was happening, at least in the past few days. But I think this is there's it's not just a sort of analyzing the charts per se, but there's so much money coming in from Robinhood retail traders that are just slamming into Doge. And then you have market makers that are on the other side of that have to hedge, so they're buying Doge. And you just have this this ripple effect. Not to mention all of these, especially American celebrities, which seem to be shilling and pumping Doge. And I don't just mean the Elon Musk stuff, but there's like some, Gene Simmons and this,
Right, right. Yeah. It's
all of these people. It's there's like some celebrity effect on this that once you have memes like that which are taking over, I mean a lot of people get tempted to want to short and think that, oh, this is a scam, whatever. None of that stuff matters. The point is that there's access for normal people to buy this very easily with various retail trading apps, and there's celebrities pumping it. So and there's some people referring to Wall Street Bets who recently they actually lifted the ban that they have on people talking about cryptocurrencies, and they allowed they were allowing for a few days people to talk about Bitcoin, ETH, and Doge. And so, you know, this is like trying to short GameStop at $50 when it was charging up to $400. The fundamentals don't matter, and Doge has no fundamentals in the sense that it's a constantly inflating currency that isn't really used in commerce. You can't. It's not a DeFi thing. You can't use it to get yield. You can't use it to do any kind of really interesting decentralized applications. It's just a meme asset, just like GameStop became kind of a meme asset. And so, there's, I think the fact that it's already pulled back, depending on whether you count that wick there, it's already pulled back like 30-40%. And if you're playing the momentum, it might not be a bad place to buy at this 25-26 cents.
Right. I mean, from the peak, if this is 46, this is 23, whatever, it's 50%. So yeah, it's a 50% pullback from the peak. So if there are people who are interested in something like Doge for whatever reason, may not be a bad place. So my my read on this is, this is a very strong move. Obviously, I don't mean just in the amount of price gain. I mean the right here, this particular kind of move where there's a little breakout and it does 3 attempts to go down, but it cannot take the thing out. So this is the beginning of a lot of breakouts. When I say breakout, I mean a spectacular breakout like this, where the price just starts going to serious distances. And I'm not looking at charts recently, so I'm not following anything. So this is kind of in hindsight. So that is one. The other is, there is a breakout here, and here you see that this close, the bear close was bought, and the price did not go below that, even by like a tick. And so all of these are signs of professional buying. And so if I have to read this, the way I would read this is that this is the first deep pullback. And the first deep pullback, especially if it's like 50% retrace, almost an exact 50% retrace, like from 46 to 23 is 50% retrace. It's this is not S&P 500, so it will never be exact because it's crypto. It will be off by a few cents here and there. But so this, I think, is a place where a lot of people will get in. And what you can expect is that the price will go up, maybe not with this kind of vertical move. I think it may be a little more diagonal. But my estimate is that within, and it won't be instant money. It will still be pretty decent, but I think it will go to twice of this. So essentially around 92 cents, something like this. So this is.
I think at that point you gotta go. At that point, you gotta go hit $1 though, right? Like there's some psychological effect of that.
There's a psychological there's a psychological. People will say, "I'm going to wait till $1," right? But sometimes I've seen that near such a psychological barriers, 2 things can happen. One is people will pre-sell. People will try to think that everyone is going to sell at $1, so I'm going to sell at 97 cents, and then it ends up not crossing that, so that is one thing that can happen. The second thing that can happen is that at that point there is an explosive move up and it smashes through the dollar and goes to like $1.25, $1.30. So that can also happen. And in cryptos, if you have a sense of the market strength, if the market is like these days, which is very strong, then you have to expect it to go well beyond $1. Yes. But a good trader always takes profit. Like whenever you see a huge bar like this, typically, if you see 2 small bars and a very huge bar, people do sell here, right? So, and they may buy back here on the bear bar, or they may re-enter here. But and you don't have to sell everything. So, but you can sell. You have to sell a little bit. I think around 92, 93 cents if you have a nice, nice big bar like this. But yeah, Doge is a real surprise, man. You know, it's unlimited supply, right? Like, doesn't that concern you?
Well, it's not. So there is a certain supply that exists right now. It's an unlimited maximum supply in that there's an inflation rate baked in. It's merge mined with Litecoin, right? Isn't it like so? Because it's a it's a fork of a fork of a fork, basically, and and so it is proof of work. And there are new Doge coins which are distributed, and the inflation is consistent, so it has a theoretical infinite supply in the future. But at the moment, there is obviously like a limited number of Dogecoins in the market. So there is some scarcity on there, not nearly on the level of Bitcoin. But again, the price of assets, especially in a bullish macro environment that we're in now, doesn't have to have anything to do with fundamentals. And in fact, fundamentals are a distraction, really, if you're trying to trade in markets like this. You know, the memes and the just the sheer amount of money that dumb money, you could say, like the retail guys that are plowing into this, it can move markets. We've seen that not just in crypto but in legacy, and this is kind of an example of both, because these are like Robinhood type retail investors that are using traditional finance apps to actually buy Dogecoin. So,
Right, I agree. I mean, as far as a trader is concerned, it's all a matter of demand and supply and market actions. If there's volatility, if there's if there's sufficient things on the books, then you can read a chart and trade it, right? And if the asset goes out of fashion for whatever reason, you will see it in the charts, right? You will see the bars being smaller, volume dropping off, all this kind of thing. So you will know that it's time to stop trading this, right? So you're right. Most traders don't actually, the pure traders, they never actually worry about fundamentals, right? So they just trade the charts, they trade the momentum, and the general pulse of the market.
yeah,
So that's great.
and your point about volume, I just want to echo that this really is an astronomical amount of volume that Dogecoin has been doing on Binance, FTX, these exchanges where normally it's Bitcoin, ETH that are at the top. Doge volume in USDT has been higher than Bitcoin and ETH on these exchanges. So that just shows you, like, if you're a trader, you got to trade what people are trading, which sounds a bit tautological, but you got to go where the action is, and the action is definitely on Doge right now.
Yeah. So what do you think of these other markets like NFTs and so on? You mentioned earlier about Snowden getting into NFTs. I've seen Pele, the football player, the soccer player. And probably the young crowd doesn't remember him, but he was a legend in his time. And he's selling an NFT and so on. So what's your input about this market?
I mean, these are, like, when it comes to Pele and these kinds of people that have a celebrity or a brand or an image, it's a no-brainer to get into NFT production and sale, right? Like, just like you make some action figure or you make some kind of clothing line with your name on it, NFT is just another medium to produce your crap, your brand crap. So I can totally understand why people like footballers, other athletes, or influencers like Paris Hilton and these kinds of characters who are, their whole living is monetizing their brand. And so NFTs are just another way for them to do this. The other major benefit of NFTs, I'm not sure if this came up because we talked a bit about some of the legality of certain tokens, when there's decentralized projects that are behind them. NFTs are actually rather uncontroversial in when it comes to crypto assets, because you're really just producing some digital item. Like it's not you're not producing a security. It's just some kind of digital item that you're selling, just as if you were selling um, an action figure or whatever. So there's no SEC involvement. There's no drama with any of the regulators. You're just selling digital crap. Um, so that's going to attract people who assess the risk of this. Even NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, was doing NFTs for the first trades that have happened on stocks. Like they take the first trade ticket that's punched for a new stock that's been listed on New York Stock Exchange, and they're making NFTs and selling them of it. So the risk committees that normally are at these firms and at these different companies that are assessing these things, normally if it's like some kind of some token, is that a security, they're shying away from it. But NFTs are unambiguously not a security and just some consumer item that they can sell uncontroversially. So that's my one thing on that. The other thing is, like, I think it's fantastic when Edward Snowden has done this sale for almost $5.5 million in order to support charity. In this case, Freedom of the Press Foundation. Snowden has, like Julian Assange, has been persecuted for basically telling the people the truth about things going on with the powers that be. These are great great causes for using crypto, even if it's selling NFTs for millions of dollars. A great way to bring in money to support these causes. So in that regard, I think this is great. I don't think Edward Snowden is like a grifter in this regard. He's just taking advantage of this in the way to do some kind of novelty way to get donations. So I think it's great. What are your thoughts on, in general, about this kind of stuff?
Right. I think it's merchandising. It's a collectible, and celebrities have been selling it for years. It's just in digital format. It costs them nothing to manufacture and distribute. So the major costs they always had was creating a collectible in large quantities, signing up with some distributor to send it across, and then sell it, right? So now it's just essentially, well, I shouldn't say it's free, because ETH costs are so high nowadays. So there's some cost, but it's not a lot, because it's only the creation cost. The purchase cost goes to the, the gas for the purchase goes to the buyer. I'm just wondering. I think a lot of these are speculative buys. It's not. See what happens in the actual merchandising world. Like, if at least in the US we have things like commemorative plates, commemorative spoons, and things like this. These are all bought by fans of the show. Pretty much people who are shall we say lower middle class, or this kind of people who who cannot really afford things which are of a higher value, like they cannot invest in art and things like that. So they typically buy your action figure and some fancy. And there are some dolls called real doll. Sorry, what's it called? And they're these little ugly dolls. People bought them, and they became a big collectible sensation, to the point that many of them sold for $120,000.
Is that the Beanie Baby thing?
Beanie Baby, yes, Beanie Baby. That's right. So I think my wife has one or two of them, which we got for like less than $100. But eventually, they became collector's items, like after say 10, 20 years, and then you can sell it for 100, 200K. Some of them, not all of them. So, but the people who bought them were the people who could not afford things like real fine art, or like an African sculpture, this and that. So they would buy these and Elvis commemorative plates. Commemorative plates are just plates which you eat on, right? But but people just fix it on their walls like a decorative item and so on. And some of these values go up as well. A lot of these values go nowhere. So in the digital realm, I am wondering if it's the who are the actors, because the people with ETH, these are not lower middle class people. These are, I mean, most people who are buying NFTs, these are wealthy people. You have to think that this is not stupid money, right? There are punks going for 100K, 200K, like some of them went for almost $1 million. So these are not lower middle class people. They are buying it, uh, assuming that this will be like fine art, like in 20 years. So right now, the mood is that, or the the overall impression is that this is a fad. It will fade away. No one will care in 1 year. Things like that, right? And that is the same thing that happened to Beanie Babies, all of this stuff. Again, some of these fads just died. They never came back. Many of them never came back. Like your commemorative plate on some TV show, a lot of them just died. Okay, but some things caught on. Beanie Babies is one. There's another realistic doll that they created with really fancy clothes, really realistic dresses and things of that nature. And those things also started. They have a lot of value. So
Realistic dolls? What do you mean?
I forget what it's called, but they're like 19th century um, dresses and all that. I mean, I'm not an expert in dolls and everything.
Oh,
I just
so it's
try
more
to.
like an artifact. I mean, we're talking about like stuff from the 19th century.
No, it's not from 19th
Russian.
century, but it is a period. Is not there are dresses in different periods. So anyway, it's again, the dolls are not my expertise, so I won't be accurate here. But essentially, there are artifacts, there are merchandise that you can buy, and people thought they were fads when they were created. But say 10, 20 years later, they are worth 1,000, 10,000 times. Just like if you look at Bitcoin, it's been what, 10 years. When we started getting into Bitcoin, it was $1 or less than $1, right? Now it is $61,000. Same thing can happen to random sets of NFTs. So for example, let's say punks, because it was one of the first, and it was fair, and it was given away, like it was not a cash grab or any of these things. That is why it has a lot of traction, because people believe that in 10, 20 years, each of these punks will be worth like $1 million. Now, some of them are already almost $1 million, but I'm saying that is the kind of feeling you have about that. But some of these newer things, now there's, every day there's a new set coming out, right? There's hash mask, hash hounds, hash this, hash that. Like this is everything in the world is becoming an NFT. So many of these will die. Many of these will not have that traction, because there needs to be something salient about it, right? Something that distinguishes it from the market, from everything else, right? One, of course, is limited supply. So I think punks were good that way, right? They created, I think, some 10,000 punks. Everyone was unique. Everything was given away free for anyone who asked for it. So it has that purity of art in it, right? So I think that is what gives it its credibility, and that is why people are willing to pay. So I think that market is real. But many of these other NFTs, I feel, is speculative. And there was a tweet yesterday. Someone is trying to offload some of his NFTs. Nobody's buying it. So it was this situation where you see everyone is trying to sell, and very few people are trying to buy.
Yeah, and it's like from a trader's perspective or a market maker's perspective, it's a nightmare, because the best part of, I guess, fungible tokens, like normal tokens or shares that we're used to trading, is that you have a stronger market where you can trade any one of them for any other one, and you have different markets that are trading a larger supply of these, so you can liquidity is just much better. If you have something that's one of one, or two of two, or sorry, one of two, that there really is only a few of these things existing. You can't break it down. You can't trade them on multiple venues. You can't really have enough. There's maybe one trade every few weeks on some of these things. How can you really know what the proper market is? I think I am scared of them, to be honest. I don't want to hold a portfolio of NFTs. I like one of the major reasons why I'm 99% in crypto is because I know the value of my portfolio at any given second. Like, it's one of the most liquid markets in the world. We're trading 24/7. I can see what the going rate is for the stuff that I have in my portfolio. With NFTs, I don't feel like that's the same, and so I personally have been avoiding it for that reason.
Right. No, and that's because there are different kind of markets, right? Your coins, Bitcoin and so on. These are capital markets, right? Essentially, as fungible tokens, they're all capital markets, and NFTs are art markets. It's a fine art market. It's eventually you are going to have special studios or art galleries, and I mean you already have OpenSea and all of these guys, which are essentially digital art galleries, and you can browse the artist and this and that. And then I guess eventually you're going to have appraisers who are going to appraise the art. Something like you have online appraisals now for real estate. At least in the US, there's something called Redfin and Zillow, where you can put in an address and it'll show you all the real estate value in the surrounding area. So I think something like that, some kind of AI-based appraisal technology is needed for NFTs, which can show, this is the likely value of this art, right? And then you really need galleries, you need auctions, you need professional collectors. So a lot of the wealth in fine art comes from collectors, people who have. I wouldn't say their wealth is very, very high. They're more than the top 1%, the top 0.1%, and they collect art as an investment and as for their own viewing pleasure, right? So and they a lot of this art is never sold, right? It's very rarely sold. So like when was the last Picasso sold, right? It doesn't. It happens maybe once in 30-40 years, and that is why the value is so high over there, right? So now if you say in NFTs, I am doing the sales every every few days, so the more it rotates, the less value it has. So so we have to see, I think, the market mature. So this is why I think NFTs there definitely is something here, but I think it's at the very early stages of the market, and in 10 years, when we have these automated, valuation tools, things of that nature, when we have professionals investing in it, and when we have a way to have some kind of real use for this NFTs. So right now, if you go to if you go to the Louvre or wherever, you have a place, you have a space where you have all the artwork, and you can enjoy that artwork only in that space, right? So that actually, if you've gone to any of these museums, I mean, I'm sure many of you have, the feeling you have is what you pay for the entry, and you are already in that mindset where you are ready to appreciate art. You may have people there, some guides who explain to you why this art is groundbreaking, things of that nature. So without all of those ecosystem pieces, I think NFTs is very, very early, right? So if in crypto people know what punks is, why is, they may know it, but if you show it to a random person on the street, right, who is not into crypto, and say to him it will look like it will not look like anything. It will not look like anything important, or he won't understand the art. So I think that ecosystem is going to be built over the next 10 years, and in 10 years there'll be some NFTs that will be that whose value will start challenging the values of the fine art market, right? So I look at the whole NFT thing as just like the way internet commerce eventually rivaled retail commerce, and crypto is still trying to rival the financial markets. I think this is going to happen. The art, I think, it could be much slower because it's non-fungible. It might take 20, 30 years. So if you're buying NFTs, you should be willing to sit on it for, I think, 20, 30 years. And,
What
people who are older than 50 probably should not do it.
yeah, and I would say like another way to look at it is, I think that was an interesting way to put it about how like if you show crypto punks to some random person on the street, or if you were to show it to some art appraiser, some modern art appraiser, they wouldn't know shit about it, and that's because it's like a different crowd. So basically, like, because it's the same thing we talked a few weeks ago about this. Who was it? This guy that painted something that sold for $70 million or whatever, and it looked like, to you and me, well, maybe not, maybe you have a finer taste than me, but to me it just looked like a very poorly made painting, but it had some kind of symbolism around deconstructing the female figure or whatever the hell the story was. I'm not refined enough to understand that context, but really there's the old money. So the people who have billions of dollars, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, who are willing to pay for these kinds of like modern or older art, they have a context about the history of what these things mean, which I certainly don't, and probably many of the people listening to this don't. And so when you flip that to CryptoPunks, there's plenty of guys that are worth hundreds of millions, billions of dollars within crypto who not only understand but appreciate that context on a level that they're willing to spend, and we've seen it already, millions of dollars for CryptoPunks. And it's something that is only understood really within crypto, and crypto has spawned all of these wealthy people that are willing to put down money for this. And so you're right. I think there's going to be this sort of like industry, these new crypto art critics who understand the context and can explain it to the plebs and sort of give them the context. And then you're going to have maybe in the future you're going to have these boomers who are looking at CryptoPunks and pretending like they understand what they mean, and to make it look like they're in the know and like they're aristocrats because they're admiring a CryptoPunk. Who knows?
Yeah, I think right. I think it will be a lot more interesting than just displaying the art. I think the true value comes from creating something, creating a possibility that never existed. So when we started working on crypto, our original vision was that we're going to replicate everything in the financial markets in crypto, and it's going to be great because you have all the good things of crypto, the decentralization and all of the privacy and all of that, and you're going to have the markets, the traditional markets where you can trade. So you're going to trade oil, S&P 500, this and that. But what we found was that people really wanted to trade crypto assets because crypto assets were more volatile and they were new, and they had economic features that did not exist in the traditional markets. When Bitcoin, if you look at Bitcoin, it's even when this simple thing as multi-signature started, right? Imagine that a coin is programmable, not just transferring to each other, but is based on certain conditions. This is a feature that doesn't exist in traditional currencies. And when Ethereum started, you could create assets that have. So if you look at what the financial markets do in securities, and what you can do in Ethereum you can do a million different things, right? the asset itself has certain characters. So that makes it more attractive. Like a lot of it is governance, a lot of it is things like rebasing, minting its own tokens. I mean, everything happens like the whole thing is a living organism, right? So I think that kind of thought is going to come into NFTs as well, where your NFTs are going to be able to do things. And things, so they won't be passive objects like your fine art, what you see right now. They'll be dynamic, they'll interact with your environment. So if you drop an NFT in a particular place, it will integrate into it and it will interact with it, and that is going to create value that is much greater. Eventually it will be much greater than the fine art itself. It will be different. It won't be a direct competitor, but you are going to be able to embed NFTs into places, and they will behave differently, and this is what is going to attract people. Because
Yeah, I mean, imagine on Twitter, like you can certify a proper NFT on your profile as your avatar.
Absolutely. Things of that nature, right? And these are still just the beginning things we can think of. I'm sure creative people will think a lot more sophisticated stuff. And you're right that NFTs are seeing activity because they're still unregulated. And speaking of regulations, you probably heard of the SEC safe harbor. What's your thoughts on this?
So you're much better when it comes to understanding these legal things than me. I mean, my reading of it is, I agree with it completely. I think that the whole idea of starting a project that is centralized in the beginning, so there's like a handful of people who get together and their efforts are bootstrapping the network that is meant to be decentralized some years later. And you spend the time, maybe a year or so, building it, getting it out there. Takes another couple of years to adequately decentralize it. And I guess the model for this is Ethereum, which definitely raised, that they issued ETH, which was basically like a security at the time, because they were raising the investments from people and then building a product which would end up making those investments worth more. But then I guess in this framework, it basically morphed out of being a security into being an adequately decentralized asset, which Bitcoin has been from the beginning. So I think that this framework and this proposal that this Hester Pierce, I guess Crypto Mom is her meme name, I think that's it's interesting to me, and I support it, and I think it's a great framework for a lot of projects to do. I think the goal should always be to decentralize, and that's what this basically is saying, is that it's a safe harbor for people to decentralize projects that they start in a centralized manner. So and I think there's so much innovation to be had from it that it's worthwhile for regulators to do this. My understanding, though, is that this is only her sort of proposal, and she's put it's on the SEC website, but she's put it on GitHub, and it's not actually an SEC policy, from what I understand. But maybe you're definitely not one of me about this.
Right. So these are proposals, and let's see what happens. I think this is already a good sign. So we have been complaining for years about the failure of the current SEC regulations and enforcement when it comes to crypto. Right. The first one we said was the entire idea that a team has to spend close to $1 million and wait 1.5 years to get an approval before going to a project is a non-starter. So no sane person is going to do that, right? Because it's just a lot. By the time you get your approval, your project idea is obsolete. So think about any idea from 1 year ago. It's probably obsolete now. There's better way of doing things. The token economics you would have changed, and so on. The second is like for a team to get $1 million before raising money, this is unrealistic. So their entire regulatory apparatus was for your 1934 situation, right? That was the first objection the crypto community had. The second was the second major one was the rule that required tokens to be traded on a national stock exchange, which means you have to trade on Nasdaq or NYSE or an ATS. None of these are easy. You can't go to NYSE and say, list my shit coin. It's just not going to happen. So that I think was worse, because if your token ever is declared a security, everyone will delist it. Its value goes to zero. So these two things are fixed, right? The registration requirements, which were very onerous, right? They were, you had to do a whole bunch of. So if you're trying to raise money for Tesla, you have to. It's very exhausting, and you cannot do this as a individual. You have to hire a team of lawyers and legal assistants, and it's $1 million thing. So now the requirement for registration is essentially any decent white paper that it will have all the things, like your roadmap, your team, this and that. Okay. So what is new? What are you? So essentially, the SEC has accepted that what the crypto community has been doing is right, and what they were saying is wrong. They have essentially surrendered to crypto, which I think is a major victory for crypto people who have crypto has outlasted the regulators. They have, in this grinding war, the regulators have surrendered. So what is different though? What is still, what are they trying to add as, from their side? And two things. One is you have to register on Edgar. Edgar is a security database. Essentially, it shouldn't be onerous. It's just, you just giving them information about your, the amount of capital, the amount of tokens, this and that. Okay, that is one. The third is exit requirement. So after 3 years, you have to either prove that you are decentralized enough according to certain criteria, which, if I have to simplify it, is to say that your token has utility and your token, the team is holding less than 20%. I'm oversimplifying it, but this is essentially, which is fairly, I think it's a very fair way to put it. If your token has utility and the team is holding less than 20%, then you're decentralized enough. Okay. But that has to go through council. So they have added that, they can't help but squeeze lawyers into it. This is, maybe something that can be worked on. And then if you have not, if you face the test, then you have to register it as a security. So the good thing they've done is they've said that if you previously sold tokens, if you go through the safe harbor, then that previous sale is also covered. So this is good. This will, and this is actually foresight. They realized that most ICOs are already done. You're going to have, the 2017 ICOs, you want to bring them into the regulatory umbrella, you have to give them some way to do that, and that's how they've done it. So it's, I'm actually impressed with their read on the market, their ability to balance and come up with a regulation, and the whole process of having version 1, getting feedback, doing version 2, putting it on GitHub. All of this is very, very impressive, right? I wouldn't see this in many other jurisdictions. Most other places, it's just bureaucrats. They just make up whatever that comes to their mind. So here, it was the only negative thing is that this is closing the barn door. After the horses have left, it just took them like 3-4 years to figure this out. right? Although we've already, the community has already been talking and already been telling, even from 2017 when they did the first action against somebody, all the voices in crypto have said, don't do this, bring new rules, and they have gotten constant feedback. But the nature of bureaucracy, so even if you take if you put at one brilliant person to do something, he will do it well. But if you put 100 brilliant people in a bureaucracy, they will totally take forever to do anything. So that is just the nature of bureaucracy. So, but still, it's a little late, but I think it's still good. And hopefully, uh, even these exit requirement and all of this will also be there'll be some flexibility in the future, so that sometimes it just doesn't get decentralized in 3 years. What are you going to do, right? Are you the moment you register as a security, then what? In other words, is there a difference if it's declared a security or non-declared a security? Because now they're saying you can trade it anywhere. So what is the difference, right? If there's no difference, then why do you need any of this? So those are things I think that they need to work on and make things better.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, so this is the proposal, and there's certainly some regulators that are arguing, and even there's a lot of Congress, as I understand in the United States at least, Congress people that are supporting various innovative approaches to this. But what is the actual current prognosis for getting proper regulation in the next couple of years? I know that we crypto has birthed, as we've said earlier, like tons of rich guys that are paying for lobbyists and paying for that influence that you need to get to make things happen in United States. Is that maybe making our odds better in general, or what?
Right. So during 2017, I proposed that every ICO which has raised 10 million or more put some money, at least 1% of their raise into a fund that educates and lobbies for common sense regulations. Not even asking for favorable regulations, but common sense regulations. And at that point, nobody did that because they're all focused on building and hiring and this and that. So, but I think that the issue is the space is so fragmented in the crypto that there is no real there's no central entity that represents us in front of the government. So there is a digital chamber of commerce and a couple of these, but they are not really representatives. They're essentially they're trying to be a lobbying organization, but I don't see that they're getting that much funding. They don't have that much connections with the politicians and so on. So what you really need is you need to hire a old lobbying organization that has its fingers in all the politicians, right? The pulse on all the politicians. And some of it is just education. So I see when you look at SEC or CFTC, they are very well educated about crypto. So it took them a while, but they figured it out. But when you talk about politicians, you have to understand that this is not their specialty. They are worried about everything from climate change to gun control to they have a whole bunch of crap to worry about, right? So even these people on the financial committees and all that, they're colored by their old worldview, right? They think that it's a crypto is a threat to the US dollar, and US dollar will lose reserve currency status and this and that. So they're worried about all kinds of things. And a lot of their fears are unfounded, and a lot of their assumed advantages are imaginary, right? So so anyway, so it started with idea that crypto is a bunch of anti-state. It's like a anti-state view of economy, currency, um, even criminal. They may think all of these. Most of this is to do criminal activity. So this is the thinking of a lot of these people on the finance committee and all that, even today. So when you say crypto, so this is why if you look at all these presidents, even Trump, who everyone thought was going to be pro crypto, said I hate Bitcoin. So whoever is feeding this information to them, they are kind of entrenched in the old world. They are paid by the old world. When I say old world, I mean the old financial world. And they are trying to shape policy from their side. And they have a lot more money than crypto has right now. At least crypto is not spending that much on these guys. So I think the idea that you can outspend these people is not realistic. What really should happen is what is going to happen is your old financial companies are going to buy out some of these new crypto companies. So let's pretend this is not in any way true. It's just imagination, just to make sure people don't misunderstand. Let's imagine JP Morgan buys Coinbase. Okay, so now what's going to happen is JP Morgan is going to start lobbying for crypto. Why? Because they will feel that owning Coinbase is going to give them advantage over their competitors. Okay, so once that happens, now you are suddenly you will find all the politicians are positive for crypto, and then some other investment bank is going to buy some other exchange and so on. So that is how it's going to get softer from that side, because I don't think we can outspend these people, right? Because the old financial world is still very vast. Its roots are very deep, and they have all kinds of connections with the power structures, and forget, not just the US, all over the world, right? So initially they will try to eliminate competition, because it's a threat to their system. Only when they adopt you, they're going to get relaxed. And you can tell a lot of these politicians, when you talk on TV, when they say statements, it's obvious they don't understand what they're talking about. They're using the words in the wrong manner. Like there's this politician who one of his biggest donors is this payment company. Like I don't know if it's Western Union or any one of those guys. So this guy is talking like crypto is bad, and he's saying the US dollar is going to lose seniorage. So he's using the word in the wrong manner. So then I realized that he's just reading, someone has fed something to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about, right? So you see this a lot with politicians. They, many of them are not financially literate. The ones who are, I think even they are repeating talking points. And this is all over the world. So for example, in India, there was this thing about, we should ban crypto, which is, I found, was the most absurd thing, because India, the big problem is counterfeit currency. So what happens is India's neighbors, they fund, terrorist activity and so on. And the way they do that is they print Indian currency. They don't print their own currency. They print Indian currency, fake currency, and that they pay to the, to the terrorists they hire. That is how the whole thing works, and that's why India had to demonetize some currency, like I think a few years ago. That demonetized certain notes, because that is what they were printing. So they have this problem with fake currency. The best way to deal with that is to go crypto, right? So if you go to crypto, then no one can print it, right? Except even if you have proof of stake or whatever. Like, forget the tech right now. If most of your big transactions are through crypto, you have softened the blow that this fake currency can create. And the small things you can have, you have coins, Right? Coins are harder to. It's more expensive to fake because it's still metal. Like you have to get the same weight and all this stuff. It's not that easy. So and then there would be like a few medium denomination notes that it won't be worth doing that. So I think so that was very surprising because they should be very aware that this is what's going to solve that problem, right? So same thing there. I think the government is fed information from entrenched players who see this new technology as a threat, and seeing this new technology as a threat is a very old problem. So when the first railways, started moving, somebody wrote a letter to the government saying that this is a instrument of the devil. It's moving at 40 miles per hour. This is certainly not what God intended, right? These kind of things happen, and it's not like it's a religious argument. It's just an economic argument. It's people are trying to protect their domain. So this stuff, I think, so this is another thing that tells you crypto is still very young. It has to, it's still going to, as long as there's all this opposition, the market has not peaked. The market may go through small bear markets, like 2-3 years, but the overall trend is going to be up as long as there's all this opposition. The opposition is what's telling you that this tech you have is real and the stuff you're doing has value. If what you're doing has no value, nobody would oppose it, right? So, so we will see what happens, and I think I kind of rambled from the main topic there, but yeah, I think the regulators are educated right now. I think all of the regulators know what's going on. The lawmakers need to be educated. Some of them are, a lot of them actually do own crypto in the US at least. In the US at least, most of them have blind trusts, like they don't invest directly, but they invest through a intermediary so that the lawmaker doesn't actually know what they're holding and all of that. So some of them do own crypto, and so I think there's a little bit of tolerance right now, but there's no acceptance yet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, it looks different across. I mean, we heard about Turkey banning crypto, and
Yeah.
later last year we heard about India banning crypto. So I mean, I don't, and I've heard that's fake news. That's bullshit. But it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But I really think we've gone far enough in the innovation, and we've demonstrated the value enough within crypto that like we've crossed the Rubicon in a way. There's no way that they can just swiftly throw everything in the bin, because especially in DeFi, we have proved that there's an honest and open way to have a parallel financial system which is very more verifiable and not relying on centralized intermediaries, but instead on systems which are transparent. People can see how they work, and that's we're not instruments of the devil, right? We are instruments of God.
Right.
we're doing good things in what we are building.
Right. We are adding value to the financial system, and in a lot of places, I think. So people in the US, people in the West generally, they don't. A lot of them don't realize how it is in, say, South America or parts of Asia and Africa. There is no financial system. Like in the country of Suriname, there is no stock exchange, right? Burma tried to set up a rudimentary stock exchange. So there is a lot of in many places the only way people can have any kind of presence in the financial system is through crypto, right? It's a truly global market, truly 24/7 market, completely agnostic about borders. So I think that value we cannot neglect, and I think this is a good. It's as you said, it's just a good milestone to say, yes, we have created value and this is valuable. You can't throw it out anymore. And but yeah, the journey is still, there's still plenty of milestones to hit.
Yeah, we've in general come a long way from the times when people were saying this is just for funding terrorism and whatever other crap they said about drugs and stuff, money laundering. That stuff, those things, nobody takes people that focus on that stuff seriously anymore.
Right.
There's so much value that's been added overall, and so yeah, I've never felt more confident about our industry in general.
Right.
That, like, this is here to stay. It's going to keep growing. We have to focus on the newest generation, the young guys getting into this, and make sure that they're on board with our values and principles. And that's the way that we win everyone over.
Right, and we should not forget our values and principles. I think that is there when the freedom is only like a generation away, right? So I think one of the things that's happening is with all these new people moving in, someone has to educate them and say the reason you are here is this. These values are what make it powerful. These values are what give it value. If you try to take them away, if you try to compromise on these specific things, then you may as well stay in the old system. Like, why did you even come here, right? So that education, I think, it's a responsibility of all the I don't want to say old because it's only 10 years old, but the people who the early adopters have to educate the new arrivals to say, hey, this is why it's good. It's not a money making money. Yeah, money is there, but the reason money is there because it has these properties, and if you lose those properties, it will be less valuable. It will be eventually it'll be worthless, right? So I think those things we used to, it used to be through these forums, Bitcoin Talk and IRC and all this. Nowadays, I think a lot of the action, a lot of the discussion is on Twitter and so on, where there's essentially the meme market has taken over, and there's no real way to transmit these values.
Yeah, yeah, and you could even say, I mean, that's I agree 100%. But maybe in some ways in 2017, in the end, there was sort of a betrayal of those values, and maybe the bear market was like the payment for this. I think a lot of grifting went on. A lot of people that aren't builders, that weren't actually trying to really put something together that was going to add value in the space. I think a lot of those people made too much money, and this, maybe in some way we got punished for this in the overall industry. That, like, I remember the conferences in like 2017, that the characters that would show up who didn't even know what they were talking about when it came to blockchain and crypto. Like, these people were not aligned with crypto values at all.
Right. Yeah, and I think if your if your system is strong, it will digest all the bad players. Like, it'll keep the good and it'll eject the bad. So I mean, you have to have that confidence, and I think it has done a good job so far. So this system, this is not new, right? I mean, if you remember all this Bitcoinic and all of these episodes way back in the days, 2012, whatever, there would always be people who are trying to make a quick buck and try to get out, and the system has, they'll win in the short term, but in the long term they'll get sorted out. So yeah, let's hope this continues, and we'll have another good 10 years.
Yeah, and beyond, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, great talking to you, Swapman. I think that's all the time we have for now, and see you next week.
Likewise. All right, man. Thanks a lot. Cheers.